You might be unknowingly sabotaging your own growth by doing something that seems harmless, sharing details of your personal life with everyone. Each time you reveal that you're struggling, attempting to change, or that someone has hurt you, you believe you're lightening your load. But in truth, you're solidifying an identity. You're retelling an old story with the same ending. Then you live as if you are that story itself. Not everyone needs to know what you're going through. Not everyone is profound enough to understand, and more importantly, not everyone deserves access to the private corners you so easily give away in conversation. If you truly want to evolve, start with silence. Don't constantly publicize every step you take. Don't confuse talking about change with actually changing. Those who silently do more will always be respected, more than those who talk a lot but act little. In this video, you'll learn how to turn silence into a weapon of strength, not a sign of fear. If this message resonates with you, leave a comment below with the phrase, "I am a Stoic." Share a moment when silence helped you grow. And above all, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss lessons that help you live stronger, wiser, and more peacefully, quietly, but with an undeniable presence. First, the more you talk about your pain, the more you reinforce it. Have you ever seen someone scratch a wound that's not yet healed at first? It's a reaction to discomfort, but over time, it becomes a habit, and if they continue, the scar will remain etched forever. We do the same with mental pain, but instead of scratching, we talk about it repeatedly. We recount the pain, repeat the disappointments, rehearse the betrayals, failures, and shame until it's no longer just a story we tell, but a role we embody. The mind doesn't take repetition lightly. It's a pattern-seeking machine. The more times you speak about something, especially your pain, the more your brain records it as part of your identity. It's not just something that happened, but who you are. From there, you start building your thoughts, behaviors, and even relationships based on that story. You begin seeking validation for that pain. And guess what? You'll find it. Because once the pain becomes your script, the world starts playing along. This is the hidden risk of sharing too much, especially about things that have deeply hurt you. Every conversation is like a stage. Every friend is an audience. And each retelling embeds the story deeper into traditionally system. You think you're processing it, but you're actually rehearsing it. Rehearsing the posture of helplessness. You become proficient in the role of victim, not because you want to suffer, but because expressing it brings temporary relief. But relief isn't healing. Relief is avoidance. Healing is silence, reflection, and slow internal restructuring. Healing begins when you stop feeding the pain with words. Because the more you talk about it, the more attached you become to it. And the more attached, the harder it is to let go. Stoics understood this long before modern psychology named it. They weren't cold or emotionless. They simply refused to invest energy in things beyond their control, especially when it comes to repeating wounds. For them, words are a precise action. You use them to clarify, not to indulge, to build, not to bleed. And when facing pain, they teach a powerful form of restraint, not suppression, but redirection. Because silence isn't weakness, it's a strategy. It's how you end the mental chaos and reclaim inner peace. Today, many confuse openness with strength. They believe telling everyone their pain is courage. But true courage is choosing to sit with the discomfort without turning it into a personality. It's allowing the pain to exist without making it a performance. This doesn't mean you have to keep everything bottled up, but you need to carefully select who, when, and why you speak. Ask yourself, do I need help or just validation? Do I want to heal or just to be heard? Because those aren't the same. One moves you forward, the other keeps you in a loop, wearing your wounds like badges you never wanted, but now can't remove. There's an inner strength that can only be built in silence. Those who practice this begin to change. They no longer need to recount their pain because they no longer see themselves through the lens of suffering. They speak less, but each word carries weight. Their energy no longer leaks through complaints or venting. It builds up, becoming a quiet force that the world senses even without words. That's the power of not oversharing. That's the discipline of silence. And that, whether you call it Stoicism or simply maturity, is what separates those who repeat old stories from those who finally transcend them. 2. Change without an audience is stronger. Have you ever wondered, if no one knows I'm changing, am I really changing? That silent question reveals something deeper than it appears. We've been convinced that growth must be witnessed to be real, that if no one sees your evolution, it holds no value. But the truth many avoid is this: the most powerful and lasting changes happen far from the spotlight. You don't need an audience to become who you're meant to be. You just need persistence, clear direction, and the discipline to protect your progress from unnecessary attention. In today's world, almost every moment is publicized. People flaunt their first workout, new meditation habit, or updated morning routine. Day one becomes content to post. But what if you choose silence instead of sharing? What if you change without documenting, explaining, or needing support or applause? At first, it might feel strange, even empty. Because we're used to drawing emotional energy from others, the hearts, claps, comments. But when no one knows, when it's just you and the work, you start to see the truth. You distinguish between performing and practicing. Real change, deep and enduring, doesn't need validation to exist. It needs space. It needs to breathe, free from judgment. It needs quiet to take root. And when that happens, it becomes a silent power radiating from you in ways words can't describe. You don't need to announce your transformation to be recognized. One day, people will sense it through how you enter a room, how you speak with calm, and the presence that no longer carries old storms. That's what happens when you evolve for yourself, not for others' reactions. I knew a man who never spoke about his efforts. No loud declarations, no new year, new me. But months later, I noticed a shift. He paused before responding. He listened more than he spoke. His words became deliberate. His eyes held a quiet resolve. Later, I learned he meditated daily, journaled, cut out digital noise, and rebuilt himself in silence. That transformation didn't need a stage. It only needed commitment. Now he carries a grounded energy, impossible to fake or rush. The Stoics called this self-reliance. They believed in the power of internal change, the kind that doesn't beg for permission or praise. Marcus Aurelius didn't write to impress. He wrote to sharpen his mind and soul. Epictetus didn't share philosophy for followers. He shared it because truth must be lived, not performed. This is the difference between emotional independence and dependence. When your evolution is quiet, it belongs to you. When it craves attention, it's fragile. So here's your challenge. If you can't tell anyone what you're doing, will you keep going? Will you wake early? Retrain your mind. Guard your peace the Stoic way, even if no one notices. If your answer is yes, you've already won, because the most powerful changes aren't loud or seeking applause. They grow quietly, day by day, becoming part of you, not something to display, but something to live. Let others post updates. They narrate every small step. You don't need to join them. You're not falling behind. You're building strength in silence, where it's hardest to fake and most authentic to feel. When change no longer needs to be seen to matter, that's when it becomes permanent. And when the energy you use isn't for explaining but for becoming someone new, that's when transformation becomes your identity. At that point, no one needs to ask if you've changed. They'll know without a word. 3. You don't need to narrate your evolution. Your brain is smarter than you think, but also easier to trick. Studies show that talking about your plans releases dopamine, making you feel satisfied, as if you've already achieved them. You get a rush of progress without moving an inch. That's why announcing goals early feels good, but it sets a trap. Every time you say, "This time I'm serious," you steal a bit of your drive. You fool your system into thinking the work's begun when nothing has changed. Instead of letting results speak, you let words lead. And too often, words outpace action. This is the subtle danger of sharing your evolution too soon. It's like opening champagne at the mountain's base. Just because you decided to climb, you celebrate the decision, not the effort or the slow, steady persistence. When the thrill fades, you're still at the bottom, wondering why the peak feels so far. The truth is, when your transformation is something you talk about more than you build, you're not evolving, you're performing, and performances rarely lead to lasting change. In an age craving social validation, we're trained to share every step. But growth doesn't need a microphone. It needs discipline. It needs quiet repetition. It needs inner strength that doesn't require recognition. If you truly want to be stronger, calmer, and in control of your thoughts and reactions, learn to move in silence. That silence protects your energy. It lets you focus on transformation, not visibility. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his reflections to impress others. He wrote to keep himself steady. He knew evolution isn't something you declare, it's something you live. The Stoics understood that progress shared too early gets diluted. It turns into noise. And noise doesn't create clarity, it obscures it. They valued personal discipline over public display, because when change is real, you don't need to tell anyone. It shows itself. Others will notice. But more importantly, you'll feel it. You'll feel it in how you respond instead of react, how you let go of outcomes, how you maintain peace through emotional discipline. That doesn't need explanation. It's what you embody. So, the next time you want to post about your new mindset, announce a goal, or tell friends you're taking control of your life, pause. Ask yourself, do I need to say this? Or do I need to do it? Am I seeking commitment or just applause? Because they're not the same. One builds from inner discipline. The other erodes from attention. If it's real, it can wait. If it's true, it doesn't need a proclamation. There's a dignity in quiet transformation, a strength in not needing to explain. When you keep your process private and work silently, it takes root deeply. It becomes unshakable. It stands firm without needing praise. Stoicism isn't about hiding, it's about valuing. Valuing your path without distraction. Choosing the road of invisible strength. The more you talk about your evolution, the more fragile it becomes. But when you stop talking about what you're building and focus solely on building, you create something solid, unyielding. Not everyone needs to know what you're changing, but if the change is real, they won't need to be told. They'll feel it. And so will you. Retelling old stories keeps you trapped in them. You've likely met someone like this. They show up at gatherings, endlessly recounting the same tale. The job that never valued them, the relationship that ended unfairly, the time they were misunderstood, overlooked, or betrayed. You've heard it. Everyone has. But they keep telling it as if repeating it will change how it feels. The issue isn't the painful story, it's that they don't realize they're still living it. Long after it ended. They're not just recounting the past, they're building their identity around it. Whether they know it or not, each retelling reinforces that story. It becomes the reality they carry forward. The truth is, we all carry an internal script. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes loud, but it's always there, whispering things like, "I always mess things up. People like me don't get far." Or, "I'm not a leader." We don't just say these to others, we repeat them in our minds. And each time we repeat these thoughts, we tighten the chains, binding us to an outdated version of ourselves. It's like acting in a play where the stage has changed. The audience has moved on. But we refuse to update the role. We keep playing the part of the failure. Even though life has turned to a new chapter, what you repeat becomes your belief. And that belief shapes what you allow yourself to become. That's why the story you tell about yourself matters more than you realize. It's not harmless. It's not trivial. It's a blueprint. It dictates how you react, what you expect, and whether you even try. If you keep narrating a story of failure, you'll live as if you're destined to fail. Not because that's who you are, but because your mind believes the script and your actions follow suit. The Stoics understood the power of this inner dialogue. They didn't dwell on the past because it can't be changed. What matters is the judgment you make now, the thoughts you choose in this moment. Epictetus said, "It's not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them." If you keep judging yourself by old chapters, you'll never write the next one. Sometimes, to start anew, you just need to do this. Stop saying it. Stop complaining that you're unlucky. Stop saying you're always overlooked. Stop telling everyone you're bad at relationships, money, or leadership. Those aren't truths, they're loops. Each time you say them, you replay the old reel. Imagine holding a pen but refusing to write a new page, just rereading the first one. Stoicism teaches you to pick up the pen and start fresh, not with grand declarations or forced optimism, but with a quiet, resolute decision to stop narrating the story you no longer want to live. Because the moment you stop telling it, you start building something new. Not instantly, not loudly, but quietly and deliberately, word by word, choice by choice. So, the next time you want to define yourself through the lens of the past, pause. Ask yourself, is this who I am now, or just who I was? If it's the latter, let it go. You don't owe anyone a recycled story. You owe yourself the chance to become the version that no longer needs it. The power of silence isn't avoidance. It's choosing not to repeat what no longer serves you. That's emotional clarity. That's the start of inner transformation. Not with more words, but with fewer. Not by justifying the past, but by refusing to relive it. Acquiesce décision. One step at a time. Ask yourself silently, if you're doing this for yourself, do you need to say it out loud? If no one praises your change, will you keep going? That question cuts deeper than most are ready to face, because it reveals whether your growth comes from within or is just a performance for recognition. In a world obsessed with attention, refining yourself in silence feels alien. But in that quiet, invisible progress, your most powerful transformation begins. True change doesn't need a stage. It doesn't crave validation. It doesn't need to be broadcast, liked, or commented on. It just needs to be real. When you start letting go of what no longer serves you, toxic habits, emotional dependence, or a self-image shaped by past pain, and you do it not to impress anyone, but to find your own peace, that's the kind of change that lasts. You're not trying to prove anything. You're realigning yourself. You don't need a post about your recovery process. You don't need others to know you've started studying philosophy, hitting the gym at dawn, or journaling at night. What matters is that you do it quietly, consistently, without the spotlight. I knew a man who was utterly lost after a brutal divorce. He didn't talk about it. He didn't announce his comeback plan, but slowly, silently, he rebuilt his life. He took up boxing, not to show off, but to rediscover his strength. He cooked, not for photos, but to ground himself in his own existence. He read philosophy, not to quote it, but to relearn how to think. 6 months later, people noticed the change, not because he spoke about it, but because his energy had shifted. His posture was different. His presence was steady, not from muscles, recipes, or Stoic quotes, but from the quiet peace of rebuilding for himself alone. That's the strength of autonomous change. It carries a different weight. It holds a silent gravity, and when you no longer need applause for what you do, your actions stop being empty gestures and become authentic habits. There's something sacred in doing the right thing when no one's watching. It means you act from integrity, not ego. You're not chasing significance. You're choosing substance. That's what Stoicism guides you toward, not loud proclamations. But qui est conviction. Marcus Aurelius lived this way. His journal wasn't for others to read, it was to remind himself, not to impress. He didn't need to convince anyone of his discipline. His life reflected it. That's the deeper lesson. When you act for yourself, you don't need to say it. It shows. Not in the way social media teaches, through images, captions, or milestones, but in how you carry yourself, how you face chaos, how your calm quiets the noise around you. Let go of the urge to narrate everything. When you change, keep it private until it's strong enough for others to feel without you saying a word. That's how you protect your peace. That's how you build inner maturity in silence. If someone notices, fine. If not, even better, you didn't do it for them. You did it because something inside you refuses to stay still. That's the discipline that shapes your true identity. That's a strength no one can give you, and no one can take away. Next time you want to explain, prove, or proclaim. Pause. Ask, am I doing this for myself or to be seen? If it's for you, keep it sacred. Let it grow in silence and trust that real change, the kind that endures, doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be lived. 6. Not everyone deserves to know your deepest self. You've likely felt it, that subtle sting of disappointment when you open up to someone, share something profound, only for them to respond with indifference. Maybe it's a shrug, a dismissive comment like, "You think that's bad, I've been through worse," or a blank stare that makes your vulnerability feel excessive. That moment teaches you a hard but vital lesson. Not everyone is worthy of entering your inner world. When you hand someone the map to your soul and they treat it like a crumpled receipt, you start to see why silence is sometimes sacred. We live in a culture that glorifies openness, where sharing is sold as healing. But there's a vast difference between confiding in someone who can hold your truth and spilling your soul to those who lack the depth or willingness to receive it without judgment. Some people, even those close to you, aren't truly listening. Their own inner noise drowns out what you're trying to say. And when you push harder, explaining or repeating in hopes they'll get it, you don't feel closer, you feel more alone. I knew a young man who, after years of inner turmoil, found clarity through therapy. He felt a spark of pride in his progress. One afternoon, he shared a small piece of his journey with colleagues, a subtle shift he was proud of, but their reactions fell flat. One yoked, another gave a fleeting smile, a third nodded politely and changed the topic. They didn't mean harm, but the message was clear. This wasn't the right space. That moment didn't just silence him, it taught him that emotional depth needs the right container. If you pour it into the wrong vessel, it spills, or, worse, get dismissed. The Stoics didn't advocate eternal silence, but they urged caution. Epictetus taught that to grow, you must accept being misunderstood and preserve your peace around those who can't grasp your path, not because they're bad, but because they may not be ready, willing, or aware. Some truths are like seeds. They need time and careful planting. Toss them onto barren ground, and they won't grow. Force them into conversation, and they might get trampled before taking root. Your inner life isn't public property. It's not a marketplace. You're not obligated to explain your healing, decisions, or emotional growth to anyone who hasn't earned your trust. Sharing isn't always strength. Sometimes, sharing too freely is self-sabotage. You'll feel exposed, unheard, drained, and abandoned. That's why emotional boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. You don't build them to push people away. You build them to protect what's growing. So, next time you want to open up, ask, why am I sharing this? Is it because I trust this person, or because I don't want to carry the feeling alone? If it's the latter, write it down. Sit with it. Let it settle in silence first, because not everyone deserves to hold your most fragile pieces. You owe yourself the care of not giving away what's sacred just because someone's convenient or familiar. Protect your energy with Stoic wisdom. Not everyone needs to know what you're healing from. Not everyone can meet you where you stand. And that's okay. Your strength doesn't come from how loudly you share, but from how wisely you choose when to speak and who truly listens. When you stop needing everyone to understand, you free yourself to grow uninterrupted. That freedom comes from discernment, not exposure. Once you grasp this, You'll stop seeking the right ears and start listening to yourself more closely. 7. Say less. Do more. There's a weariness that doesn't come from hard work. It comes from hearing people endlessly talk about what they'll do, but never follow through. You've heard it too often: I'll eat better. I'll apply for that job next week. This time, I'm serious. They speak with conviction, maybe even excitement. But days pass, weeks pass, and nothing changes. Over time, their words lose weight, not because their intentions are bad, but because there's no action behind them. Words without deeds are like smoke without fire. They look like something's happening, but there's no substance, no spark, no transformation. That's why your silence can be more powerful than others' promises. You don't need to broadcast your plans to make them real. You don't need to narrate your change or convince others. This time is different. Just do it. Wake up early and start your morning routine. Build discipline quietly. Change happens not because you said you would, but because something inside you won't let you stay the same. In that space where action replaces explanation, your life takes shape. Think of someone you deeply respect, not for their words, but for how they carry themselves. Maybe they never spoke about their change, but they changed. You saw it in their steady walk, their attentive listening, their quiet confidence. Their discipline wasn't loud, it radiated. No posts, no speeches, no declarations, just the energy of someone who did the work without needing recognition. That's the presence people remember. That's the presence that builds true respect. The Stoics were never swayed by eloquent talkers. They didn't chase admiration through poetic promises. They lived simply, in harmony with their inner values, acting with purpose and speaking sparingly. Epictetus made it clear, words without action are just noise. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in Rome, didn't write to be quoted. He wrote to hold himself accountable to his principles. He never had to announce he was refining himself. He just did it. Over time, the result wasn't a louder voice, but a stronger soul. When you keep talking about what you're doing, planning, or hoping, you're spending energy in the wrong place. Instead of building something enduring, you get caught in the performance of progress, and that performance fades. What lasts is the quiet, persistent effort, the kind that holds meaning even without witnesses, the kind that doesn't need applause to feel valuable. It builds a resilient mindset you carry, unseen by others. Next time you want to explain what you're doing, let your actions speak instead. Let your results, your discipline, and the subtle shifts in how you respond carry the message. If someone asks, smile. You don't owe anyone an update. You owe yourself the outcomes, and those come from doing more, not saying more. Speak less, not to hide, but because you've outgrown the need to prove. Act more, not for attention, but to live true to yourself. Let your daily choices lay the foundation you walk on. You don't need to shout. You don't need to convince anyone. When your energy is real, it reveals itself. And when it's present, it lingers long after words have faded. That's the essence of a Stoic presence, clear without clamor, committed without boasting, and mature in a way that's real, even without witnesses. In a world addicted to noise, choosing to guard your peace quietly is an act of true strength. The more you talk about your struggles, growth, or goals, The more you risk turning your evolution into a performance, but when you steadfastly protect your energy with Stoic discipline, when you stop oversharing and start living with quiet resolve, something remarkable happens. You stop reacting to every opinion, stop needing constant applause, and start feeling the power of inner growth and stillness. Stoicism teaches that emotional discipline, self-control, and mental clarity come not from speaking more, but from doing more. Say less, live more. Let your actions carry weight, because when you stop narrating everything, you reclaim your identity, not as someone striving, but as someone becoming, and the world will sense it without a single word. If this message strikes a chord, share your story in the comments. What have you stopped saying to others to protect your peace? What part of your life are you quietly building? Let us know below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more Stoic tools to sharpen your mind daily and reshape your mindset for true transformation.